Hey friends, before we jump into the meat of this video, which is primarily about artificial intelligence and how it's going to dramatically impact your life in the coming years, I want to talk a little bit about the mainstream media and how they're so wonderful at ignoring the remarkable things President Trump says. I believe it was on Friday, June 22nd, that President Trump held a cabinet meeting in which he made the following remarks.
A number of years ago, I see Chuck Schumer, we must have borders. Hillary Clinton, we must have borders. If people penetrate our borders, we must get them out of our country. Now all of a sudden, they're big open border people. It's a whole big con job.
I'll just pause it there and say, isn't it remarkable how these globalist politicians, people like Chuck Schumer and Hillary Clinton, will manipulate the public and say things they believe the public wants to hear in order to get elected for political purposes. And we all know you can't have a country without borders. It's very simple.
In the meantime, people are suffering because of the Democrats. So we've created, and they've let it happen, a massive child smuggling industry. It's exactly what it's become.
I'm going to pause it right there. A massive child smuggling industry has been created. We know this president has made the fight against human trafficking a priority for his administration. And so it's really remarkable to hear him speak truth about the plague of child trafficking in and through the United States, and the mainstream media remains completely silent.
Traffickers. If you think about this, human traffickers are making a fortune. It's a disgrace.
Now, when people think of human trafficking, they probably think of the coyotes taking people across the border from Mexico into the United States. And that is true. Certainly that's true as it relates to so many of these, thousands of these children that we see. These children are brought here without parents, many of them by coyotes. And we see the manipulation by the mainstream media of this story. Time magazine just got caught with its pants down, showing the little girl who was actually from Honduras and who was there with her mother and who was never separated from her mother, yet they cut out the silhouette of the little girl and put her on the cover of Time magazine with President Trump glaring down at her, as though he's the one causing so much human suffering, when actually it's the corrupt politicians who have stood down and allowed human trafficking to go unabated for so very long.
These loopholes force the release of alien families and minors into the country when they illegally cross the border. Since 2014 alone, nearly 200,000 unaccompanied alien minors have been released into the United States as a result of Democrat-backed loopholes, including catch and release, which is one of the worst. You catch them and then you release them. Might as well save your time. Don't bother catching them.
Unaccompanied alien minors released into this country. No parents, no supervision. They are completely and totally vulnerable to child sex traffickers.
And this is what we're stuck with. They're the worst immigration laws in the history of the world. The whole world is laughing at the United States, and they have been for years. These alien minors were separated and sent all the way up here alone. But they really came up with coyotes. You know what a coyote is? Not good. These are not good people. They were set up here with human traffickers because the Democrat-supported policies have allowed this to happen.
They were sent up here with human traffickers. Folks, this is not make-believe, it's not hyperbole, and it really is a crime against the American people that the majority of the mainstream mockingbird media continues not to report about the plight and the plague of human trafficking, and they continue to ignore the problem of child sex trafficking in communities all over this nation, as Steve Scalise told us before he was shot by a would-be assassin.
The sad truth is that human trafficking is a real problem plaguing each and every community here in the United States.
Friends, so much more to come in the very near future. I just wanted to share that important news with you. This president is doing some remarkable things and speaking remarkable truths, and he continues to have his character assassinated by a mockingbird mainstream horror media. Friends, I do want to let you know that the video you're about to watch is brought to you in part by our friends at Virtual Shield VPN. You know you're being tracked, profiled, and spied upon from the minute you log on. Even the big internet data providers you trust to give you access to the internet can collect, store, and sell your data to the highest bidder. So what can you do about it? You can protect yourself and your family. Virtual Shield VPN is an easy-to-use virtual private network, which you can run on your phone and computers. It will make you anonymous and encrypt your traffic. You do have the right to remain private, no matter what Big Brother might want. Visit virtualshield.com/SGTreport to learn more and take back your privacy for as little as $2.97 per month. But hurry, this incredible offer won't last forever. I'll provide the link directly below this video. So here we go. You know, it's time to talk artificial intelligence and the threat to humanity.
Tesla chief Elon Musk among a group of 116 founders of robotics and artificial intelligence companies who are calling on the United Nations to ban killer robots.
I'm not making that up. Elon Musk himself has warned that artificial intelligence unleashed and unregulated may be the biggest problem humanity faces. And to that end, I have Kenneth Ameduri. He's the chief editor and founder of CrushTheStreet.com, an entrepreneur and the producer behind an excellent new documentary called AI, the Greatest Job Disruptor in History. And Kenneth joins us right now to discuss all things AI. How are you, Kenneth?
Sean, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it and love the show.
Well, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on. Your documentary, AI, the Greatest Job Disruptor in History. Guys, you can find that on YouTube. I'll put the link below the video here so you can watch it. That's a phenomenal documentary, and I was really gripped by the clip that you have in there from the AlphaGo documentary, which proves that AI in its current state, Kenneth, can outplay the smartest, most gifted, most brilliant players on planet Earth.
In the battle between man versus machine, a computer just came out the victor.
DeepMind put its computer program to the test against one of the brightest minds in the world and won.
AlphaGo beat a professional player who has 18 Go World Championships under his belt. The victory is considered a breakthrough in artificial intelligence.
Imagine where AI will be in just a decade. Is Elon Musk right?
Yeah, no, isn't that an interesting thing? You know, AlphaGo and this game of Go, this Chinese game of Go, there's more combinations of that game and the way to play it than there are atoms in the world. And so there's no way to pre-program this machine to play the game. So they literally had the robot play itself 10 million times, and it learned. And it learned like a human. And that's where AI is going. It's generating, it's thinking. And it's the implications of this is huge because you have robots that are doing menial jobs like flipping burgers. But, you know, we are going to see robots get smart and be able to do high level jobs. And that's really what people need to start thinking about. And, you know, going back to the game, AlphaGo, I mean, how powerful is that? That, you know, they were not even able to keep track of how the machine was making the moves and deciding on how to do that. They were blown away by it. And sure enough, it beat the smartest man and the best player of that game. And this is very much unlike, you know, the 1990s chess master that we would all play against, which every move was pre-programmed in it. But now machines are learning and machines are inferring, and this has huge implications.
Well, it certainly does, and we know what DARPA is doing with its development of essentially autonomous robots. Have you been watching the HBO series Westworld at all? The one written by Michael Crichton, the mind behind Jurassic Park, and this one stars Anthony Hopkins. You been watching that at all?
You know, Sean, I really haven't been keeping up to speed on that one, though.
Well, imagine Jurassic Park, right, in which they've brought dinosaurs back. This is very similar, but in this case, they've invented or built humanoid robots that are autonomous and have artificial intelligence. And these autonomous artificial intelligent robots in the show Westworld are indistinguishable from human beings. And in this series, the robots essentially begin to realize that they're living on a plantation controlled by human beings, and where they were previously programmed to never harm a human being, they're suddenly able to override that programming, and now they want to be free. You can imagine the problems that stem from a scenario like that. With DARPA's goal to create an autonomous robot army, what do you think happens when they succeed in building humanoid robots and give these robots artificial intelligence?
Why on earth would you ever be frightened of me?
You know, and that's the thing. I look at it as like we control the ability to spark a fire. But once the fire starts burning the trees down and it gets out of control, you burn the whole forest down, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. And what we have here is the internet. It's this decentralized platform. And really, it's the sum of human knowledge, if you think about it. And it's constantly updating. And, you know, humans have access to this with, you know, a cheap internet connection, or if you want to drive to a McDonald's for free, you can access all the information you want on the internet. But what happens when you have machines that are capable of learning on this decentralized platform, constantly updating, constantly trying to figure out what's efficient, what's best? And I don't think the full grasp of this, you know, runaway artificial intelligence boom is fully being understood. And of course, you know, you start pre-programming and creating an army where you have soldiers, robotic soldiers that are smart and capable of thinking and acting. You know, obviously any sort of rogue type situation could be very problematic, and problematic if it gets into the wrong hands. So, I mean, it's so hard to say exactly what are the ultimate consequences of all of this. But, you know, you have to start looking at this and questioning how big of a deal is it going to be when, you know, robots are just so far beyond the human mind and thinking and generating on their own. I mean, this is huge. And this is why we created the documentary, to just start educating people. I feel like we only scratched the surface on really what there is to come. You know, and I would highly suggest people go to crushthestreet.com/AI if they'd like more information. We did a little report there. But yeah, this is huge, Sean, and it's exciting in certain ways, but I believe it's going to be a massive disruptor for jobs. And I don't necessarily think it's going to wipe away jobs, because I think a lot of jobs are going to be created. But for the person who's currently a driver who gets displaced, who's spent his whole career driving and doesn't necessarily have other skills, that's a big deal for that person. Even though, you know, when AI gets implemented, you know, there's going to be opportunities in sectors that we haven't even fathomed yet. So I do believe that's coming. But, you know, I know there's reports out there, and I fully believe that 50% of jobs currently in the U.S. have the potential to be disrupted by AI. And, you know, I feel like this can happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and, you know, maybe I jumped ahead by talking about what's coming in the future 10 years, 20 years down the line with DARPA and the autonomous robots with AI, because you're right, it's the threat to our jobs that I do want to ask you about. So I want to ask you about universal basic income here in a second, but just to keep the interview timely here, guys, I started with the mention that Elon Musk calls AI one of the greatest threats humanity faces. Here's a story from April 6th from CNBC. Elon Musk warns AI could create immortal dictator from which we can never escape. Tesla and SpaceX CEO, someone, by the way, I'm very suspect of, and one of the founders of PayPal. Elon Musk said that artificial intelligence doesn't have to be evil to destroy humanity. In a new documentary, Do You Trust This Computer?, Musk warned the creation of superintelligence could lead to an immortal dictator. Musk believes that humans should merge with AI to avoid the risk of becoming irrelevant. Guys, if you've heard anything coming from SGTreport in the past year, that final sentence should give you pause. Musk believes that humans should merge with AI to avoid the risk of becoming irrelevant. Kenneth, does that not sound like the beast system? That sounds like everything the New World Order and the transhumanists would dream of. They're going to tell us AI is such a threat that if we don't merge with computers, if we don't merge with machines, we will be terminated. That's one of the scariest things I've heard in a long time.
Yeah, no, and I know Stephen Hawking has even mentioned that as well, his concerns about AI. And I don't know what the balance is of just technology moving forward and, not exactly knowing what the future of the technology will bring. Or are there people behind the scenes pulling some strings to really control the population when it comes to AI? Which, I don't put it past people, and especially the elites at that. But it is just such an incredible thing, and it's moving so fast. I know you probably saw this in the documentary, Sophia from Hanson Robotics. She joked at a conference in Portugal in front of 60,000 engineers and people that are there to learn about their jobs. She joked and says, we are going to take your jobs. And when you think about that, that's kind of sinister when you think about it, coming from a robot. And how much further down the rabbit hole can that go if she's already talking like that here in 2017, I think when that happened. So yeah, I think people need to be aware of what's going on. They need to figure out what they're going to study in school, because so much of what's going on in the current college education system is so archaic. It's so outdated. People are learning things that are 10 years old, and here we have the world progressing quicker than Moore's law. And spending, obviously we can go down the rabbit hole of how much money people are dumping into college educations now that are going worthless. And in a world of AI, the internet, things are changing so fast, and people really need to stay on top of, what is going to be important in the future and build their financial moat.
Yeah, and speaking of Sophia, it's interesting you brought that up. Back in, I think it was March of 2016, maybe if memory serves, I'm going to say it was 2016. I'll have to call up this clip for you guys. Sophia was addressing a conference with her handler, and her handler said something about, Sophia, you would never harm humans, right?
Do you want to destroy humans? Please say no.
Okay, I will destroy humans.
No, I take it back.
But why don't we...
But it begs the question is, are these robots going to have a sense of morality? That's the question. Or is it going to be 100% efficiency? If you think about it, just a basic example, I live outside of Austin, and there's traffic from here to the downtown. What would be the logical thing to do to speed up traffic? Well, if robots decide that they're going to start killing people to allow a more efficient roadway, that might be what they eventually do just to achieve efficiency. So it's hard to say exactly how far down the rabbit hole artificial intelligence can go and what it'll do. But that morality versus efficiency balance there is definitely something to ponder.
Yeah, it's empathy, right? It's a question of empathy. And why don't we talk about the present threat? Because I think the present threat to humanity by AI is an economic threat. It's an end to, like you said, our jobs. The down the rabbit hole threat Elon Musk warns of is an existential threat, a threat to our very existence as human beings. And he says if we don't, if we don't merge with the machines, we will perish. That's not a very good option. But even in the immediate future, let's just talk the next 5-10 years. What is the end game for our jobs? Is that why we hear the powers that be now talking about universal basic income? Because they know they're going to have to appease the masses, at least for a while, until they can terminate the masses. We don't have to get into eugenics. We don't have to get into Agenda 21. But I can see the long game. They would prefer that a whole bunch of us are removed from this earth. According to the Georgia Guidestones, they want to keep humanity in perpetual balance with nature, they say. of a total population on the Earth of 500 million people. Kenneth, that means that about 85-90% of us need to go.
Yeah. Well, and it's a very interesting thing. I mean, you look at what China did, their one-child policy. They're very top-heavy with their demographics. They're going to have less people in the workforce in 2040 of working age than they do now. I mean, that's a population in the billions there. And, it's very interesting to see this because something that I've been doing a lot of research on and thinking about, the only way China, for instance, can fill this gap with their demographic problem is to have this massive immigration of workers to go in and try to support and pay into the system. But something no one is talking about, what about robots going in and filling these jobs? I mean, this is something that's very, very scalable. And robots taking the jobs that otherwise a highly skilled engineer would have had, or a creator. I mean, some of these robots now are getting very smart and they're doing creative tasks, sales forces, automated calls. I mean, we get that all the time now. But, I definitely see this as something that the governments are going to try to figure out how to tax. How are they going to deal with the fact that tons and tons of people are going to be out of their historical job? How are they going to deal with that when it's being given to a robot? And then how are they going to be able to quantify a machine and say, okay, this machine is making this kind of money? It's very difficult to do that. It's like trying to control Bitcoin. Bitcoin is decentralized. It's hard to define, and it's really out of the hands of the governments and the elites. But if all of a sudden now you have robots earning money, and again, how do you really define how much a robot is making if it's just a subcomponent of an entire role that it's doing? It's just very, very interesting. And I'm not exactly sure how they're going to do that. And I think there's a lot to think about going forward here.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was just thinking while you're talking there, I did a tour a few years ago with my family of the Harley-Davidson manufacturing plant in Kansas City. And so I just called up an article here, and I see that about 800 workers are going to lose their jobs as Harley-Davidson closes its Kansas City assembly plant. According to kansascity.com, the plant will close in the fall of 2019. Now, that may well be because Harley-Davidson sales were down some 6% over the past year. There's plenty of excuses, I suppose. But another part of it is that once you introduce automation, and by the way, Kenneth, when we toured that plant, there was plenty of robots helping build these motorcycles, but there are also quite a few human beings. Now those human beings are going to lose their jobs. I would bet that the plant in Milwaukee, the Harley plant in Milwaukee, will become fully automated, and then they don't need as many people. Is this why in elite circles around the world they're talking about universal basic income?
Yes. Absolutely. And you know what? It's going to continue to be a talking point for these governments. And you know what? Once you put the people, the masses, in a spot where they need to surrender themselves to the government, they're just going to vote for that. And the worse off people are, the more they give up their rights, the more they give up their liberties. And a universal basic income, for me, is not a fundamentally sound principle. It sounds like a lot of poor people with very few wealthy people at the top. And, everyone just grateful that they're getting their handout from the government. And, the worse people are, the more people appreciate that handout, versus the more people are thriving, the more they say, no, we don't want any of that. We're doing well on our own.
All right. And just to back up again just a little bit, what do you see? What is projected over the next 10 years as far as AI goes? We can already see that AI can defeat the world's best chess players. Where do you see this thing actually being 10 years from today, 10 years from 2018?
Well, it's a very hard thing to predict. Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts there. But, by way of prediction, I'll kind of show where we're at. And I'll be somewhat positive and somewhat optimistic because I think there's going to be a massive disruption in jobs. I also believe there's going to be a lot of jobs created in areas that we haven't even thought of yet. So consider Airbnb. At any one given moment, there's 5 million current rentals. And, every day they do like 300,000 leases a day. And that is AI coordinating those rentals and those leases for people. And how many new entrepreneurs have now come onto the scene because of this artificial intelligence? How many people now are making money renting out a room or renting out their homes that they otherwise wouldn't have done because of AI? And now people are able to find more affordable rentals because of AI. So I think there's some things to be anticipated that are going to be positive for the economy. Take, the horse versus the car, horse and buggy versus the car. Obviously, that was a massive disruption, 100 and so years ago. And those who stuck out with the horse obviously got decimated. But, not only did the car come online, it became very affordable for many people to drive. Think about all the indirect industries that were started. Now you have more travel. Now you have motels. Now you have drive-throughs. I mean, things that you aren't even associating with cars are now coming about because of cars. So I want to apply that here to AI. And what can we expect going forward that are going to arise directly from AI and indirectly? And for sure, I think we're going to see jobs being replaced. We're going to see driverless cars, which actually should result in less accidents on the road. One of the things Elon Musk has said is he expects a 10x reduction in accidents on the road when driverless cars are implemented. It's not going to be flawless, but a 10x is a lot better. And the indirect benefits of that is that the roads move, and maybe now your HVAC person can drive 30 miles instead of 15 miles. And so I think there's a lot of positives that people aren't thinking about yet. But also, this is going to be the biggest disruptor of our lifetime. I really believe that. But you really got to stay in front of it. As far as education, as far as what to expect over the next 10 years, oh man, Sean, so hard to say. I would tell people to really stay focused, stay in front of the trends, and stay educated and build your financial moat. I'll reiterate that once again. I don't have an exact prediction on exactly what's going to be disrupted or what's going to change, but it's coming.
All righty. Well, you mentioned Airbnb, and it's easy now to see how Airbnb is impacting the traditional hotel industry, just like Uber is impacting the traditional taxi industry, and YouTube and Netflix is impacting the traditional television networks. We are seeing a change. We're seeing a shift in many ways to the entrepreneurial spirit, where people have more choice, and more choice is always a better thing. Certainly, we live in a better world, a more informed world now in this country than when there were only 3 major television networks, and people got all of their news from mostly those 3 major television networks and a handful of newspapers. But of course, back in those days, Kenneth, most of the newspapers were privately owned. Now 6 or 7 major corporations own everything. So that is the good news, I think, about YouTube specifically and the alternative media. People are, again, finding ways to have more choice. So before we let you go, do you have any investment tips? Is there anything people can do to at least get in front of this trend to try to profit from it? Do you want to shout out any information or websites?
Absolutely. Well, we just announced our #1 AI pick at crushthestreet.com/live. And I would recommend everyone to go there to visit us at that link. And you can find all the information on it at crushthestreet.com/live. The company is Global Live Technologies, and the ticker symbol is LIVE. So definitely visit us there. Things are rapidly changing. You need to partner with the right people who are in front of this trend, and this is something that I'm only scratching the surface of. There's so much to learn, and it's a very exciting thing. So yeah, thanks, Sean, for having me on today. I really appreciate it. You have a great day.
You too. And guys, and remember the documentary Kenneth produced, AI, the Greatest Job Disruptor in History. I'll link below this video. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks for visiting us at SGTreport.com for real news 24/7. God bless.
The sad truth is that human trafficking is a real problem plaguing each and every community here in the United States. Enough is enough.